I think it's safe to say that culture is one of the most durable topics in business conversations. It's one of the most studied topics, it's one of the most spoken about topics, and it's a topic that occupies a lot of our headspace as leaders in business as we think about what it's like to create an organization and what it feels like to work somewhere. And obviously, of late, there is a better and better understanding of just how important culture is to things like innovation and performance and engagement. But having done a lot of culture work with organizations around the world, in a bunch of different scenarios, one observation has risen to the top over and over again that I think is critical for us in understanding how we get culture right. And that is that companies don't change, people do. And when it comes to culture, one of the most common conversations we would have is how do we change our culture or improve our culture or build a culture of X, a culture of innovation, a culture of collaboration, a culture of inclusivity, a culture of all these different things. Those are all questions about behavior change. A culture of innovation is one in which people do the 3 or 4 behaviors of innovation regularly and routinely. A culture of inclusion is one in which people engage in the behaviors of inclusion inside the business day to day. A culture of productivity is one in which people engage in the behaviors of exceptional time management and forward planning and critical thinking again and again and again. I would argue that actually a conversation about culture needs to be subsumed in a conversation about behavior. Now, fortunately, I run a behavior change agency, and so we've spent the last 13 years building models for behavior inside organizations to boil down these extremely abstract conversations about culture into a simple conversation about the behaviors we want people to engage with. You cannot drive a behavior you have not defined. So if you want a culture of innovation, which means you want behaviors of innovation, the first step is you've got to define the behaviors that you want people engaged in. So firstly, culture change and behavior change is an act of definition. Secondly, we won't engage in behaviors that are hard. So if we want a culture of collaboration, which means we want behaviors of collaboration, the first thing to ask is how do we make that easy for people? And thirdly, we need to be rewarded for the behaviors that we engage in that are the right behaviors. And sometimes they can be approach or avoidance type of rewards and behaviors. And so in that sort of chart of a path in terms of defining the right behaviors and understanding the barriers and drivers of those behaviors and understanding how we make them easy, we can start to change an abstract and complex conversation about culture into a simple, targeted, and effective conversation about behavior. And the best thing is, when we aggregate that up, when we get people engaging in the right behaviors moment to moment, when this moves from being a conversation about slogans on walls to behaviors in action, we get the culture that we want because we've started with a clear definition of the behaviors that we need. And those are the most important things we've learnt over our history working in this space.